Okay, so let's talk about troubleshooting our board if some of the LEDs are not coming on. Quick way to do this, first of all, make sure that the power switch is turned on and the board is unplugged. So first thing we're going to do, because we've had trouble with some broken traces, those will be the tiny little traces that go out throughout the board, that we are going to check the positive side, because how this works is all of the LEDs along the outside are simply tied to positive and negative from the switch. The ones on the inside for the USA are tied always to the positive, but we're switching the negative using our transistors to send them to ground to turn them on. So let's start with the outside first. I've taken a clip and I've soldered some tabs here, some little wires. And so I put my meter on ohms for the diode check. And so when I have continuity, the meter will beep. So along the outside, I should have continuity to all the round tabs along the outside LEDs. If I do not, then I need to find out where that trace is broken. And if you look, you can see that this trace is coming around here and it touches that one, it touches that one, so forth and so on. So you have to backtrack and figure out where. So with that being said, let's check the negative side. So I'm going to move my probe over to V negative. And on the square side of the LED, I should be reading through the resistor that is next to it. So one side of the resistor will have zero resistance, and then the other side will be reading the resistor. So let's find a resistor. And here is one side of our resistor with zero resistance. And so if I turn my meter up, I should be able to read the other side of the resistor and read the resistance of whatever resistor was installed. And if I check all the way to the negative side of the LED, I should be reading total resistance of the trace plus the resistor I installed for this LED. And so we'll see that's a 1K resistor installed in that circuit. Here we have zero resistance. Here we're on the other side reading our 1K, and here we're reading 1K connected. And so that should help you with troubleshooting the outside. Now the inside is going to be a little bit more tricky. Once again, they're always tied to the positive. So we're going to move my lead back over to the positive, and I'm going to find an LED on the inside. That would be the round tab. And I'll see here all my round tabs from positive with the switch on should read zero resistance on any of them. If I don't have them, I'm going to have to follow my trace out and figure where that's broken. Now, because we're using a transistor here, all of our switches are going to come off our transistor tabs. Here's one here, here's a alternate one that I installed, and here's one here. And so in order to troubleshoot that, we're going to have to move our leads. I'm going to disconnect from here. And so from the C tab to one of my LEDs, let's try this one, here's my C tab, to an LED, I think that might be one. To one side of my resistor. I'm showing, that one's showing 300 ohms. The other side, if I can get on it, should show zero resistance, and it does. So I'm showing from here to one side of my resistor to the C tab will always be 0 ohms. If that's not happening, then we have something broken between the C tab and the resistor. The other side, we're going to be reading the resistance, and we say that's a 300 ohm resistor. And then I'll be reading up to the negative tab on my LED, and I should still be reading my 300 ohm resistance. So the path for this would be coming through here, and you can actually see the trace. If we look very closely, it gets very confusing as to exactly where they're at and how they're getting there. So you'll have to follow this out. So let's take a closer look at that little circuit, just so you have some idea of how to follow the trace. See if that works a little better. All right. And so from the C-tab, I'm going to follow my trace out. I'm going to see that to the LED I just checked, it's coming down here. And it looks to be splitting off over here, coming along over here. And along the way, it's dropping off the other resistors. And so it's coming up here. And here, I'm showing 0 resistance. The other side, I will be showing the 300 ohms for this SM surface mount resistor. And so if I don't have that, if somewhere along this pathway of this trace that this was broken, I would simply have to solder a jumper wire between the nearest solder point. For example, if I was not getting anything to here, then I would need to find the nearest trace where it did work, possibly here, and solder a small wire from point A to B right here to bypass this trace, because this trace right through here is broken. That can happen any number of ways. Defective board, you hit it with a soldering iron and got it too hot and burn it up on the board, and it's really going to be almost impossible. You're going to have to jumper around that trace to the nearest other solder with a small piece of wire. And so we've also done some board troubleshooting over here, but that's going to help you with the LEDs and some simple checks using continuity on your meter.